So I turn to you guys right now, and I'm listening to this, and you watch that video, and anger actually is welling up, and frustration. As the city administration, are you not embarrassed to hear that a school administrator, students and parents are going out to homes and boarding up the homes themselves because they don't believe the city has gotten the job done?
Paying for it themselves. People who are underpaid to begin with, taking money out of their own pockets and paying for this. It makes your blood boil, particularly given what we've witnessed over the last several weeks in Detroit, where we had the mayor and city council fighting and talking and battling about how much control they're going to keep and how much authority and power they're going to keep over the city. And you look at the results of their work. This is a city that has sent millions of dollars in neighborhood stabilization funds back to Washington because they couldn't get their act together to spend it. Yeah. And that was money that would have torn down these schools.
Yeah, you know,
or buildings, I'm sorry.
Yeah. The question I asked the principal about whether this is just Denby or the other, or is it the whole city, I asked for a reason because I live in the city, and I live in a neighborhood that's nothing like the neighborhood around Denby, but we have the same problems. I mean, I've been writing for weeks now about how the lights a block from my house are out, and there are children, there are two schools right over there that children walk in the dark, elementary school children, to school every day. This is a problem in the whole city, and it doesn't matter if you're in a poor community or in a stable community. The city doesn't function. City government is not delivering basic services to an awful lot of people. I thought it was really interesting this week that we had this story come out, and we didn't hear anything from the mayor. We didn't hear anything from city council about this. It was like, well, that's not really their problem. And that is the problem. There's nobody who stands up and says, you know what, we're going to fix this. Whatever it takes, we're going to get it done.
Steve, we're all, in the newspaper business, we're always being criticized for telling the negative. We have been over backwards. We've almost gone overboard over the last couple of years to talk about the revival of downtown and all these exciting young people who are coming to rebuild downtown and live in these nice lofts around downtown.
But this is what you don't see. This is what you don't see.
And the neighborhoods in the city never get the kind of attention that they deserve. And if you would just get out, if folks would just get out and drive through these neighborhoods and ask themselves what it must be like to live there, to walk to school there, to try to raise children there, I think there would be a lot more outcry and a lot more attention given to rebuilding these neighborhoods.
Now, there are some volunteer patrols that I do want to talk about, and obviously I want to talk about the problems of, we have the abandoned homes, we have the lighting problems, and we have a busing problem. But I also want to see, kind of talk me through about when you know, a principal like this says, we've got a problem, and talks to the newspaper about this, who picks up the phone? What's the conversation? Who do they call at the city and say, hey, we've got a problem? When are they going to speed up the demolition of some of these homes? Where's the chain of command? I guess when you start to say, well, we've got to solve these problems, where does the phone call start? From who to who, and where does it go?
Well, I mean, in most cities, I would think Sunday morning, the mayor would have picked the phone up and called several people and said, look, I don't want to see another story like this, right? The same thing when I put in the Sunday paper a few weeks ago, picture of Lafayette Boulevard dark at midnight. You know, I mean, that's the way cities that function actually work, is that heads roll when stuff like this happens, and the fact that they haven't at City Hall speaks to the again, the level of detachment that we have from the idea of leadership actually delivering on something for citizens. That's not what the people who are in charge think they're there to do.
I mean, can you imagine? I mean, we talk about the dropout rate in Detroit, and it's something in the area of 40% or higher. These children have to walk an obstacle course to get to school. I mean, they don't feel safe. They have to wait at bus stops, some for 2 and 3 hours each way. That's a pretty high obstacle, a pretty high barrier to getting an education. We've got to step up and take a look at what these kids are having to go through before they ever get to the classroom.
And you know, the other thing that this really highlights for me is the high stakes that the governor has sort of stepped into. there's going to be a lot of expectation that he can fix these things. And in a relatively short time frame, people will start asking, when is this going to get better?
Is it really possible, though?
I'm not sure how possible that is. I mean, if you think again about the number of broken systems that result in this problem in terms of lighting, in terms of buses, in terms of police, you're talking about a massive overhaul of the basic fabric of city government to get this stuff turned around. I don't know how easy that's going to be. I don't know where the money's going to come from for that.
But Christy, you look at New Orleans after Katrina. It looked very much like many of these Detroit neighborhoods did. Delray, these neighborhoods around Denby and Cody. You go out Harper and go down at what was once a main street, and buildings are just in rubble along a main avenue. And the federal government wrote a blank check to New Orleans to rebuild after Katrina. Detroit doesn't have the resources to tear down all these buildings. Michigan doesn't have the resources. If the federal government did nothing else but helped us tear down all of these abandoned homes, it would at least be a start toward shrinking that footprint.
Where are we in terms of the schedule to get down a lot of these abandoned buildings? And I know the mayor said that they want to get down so many in a couple of years. Where are we with that?
They're actually moving very fast. I mean, much faster than any other administration has. But, you know, it's not easy to tear down a house. I mean, everyone thinks you just go out there with a bulldozer and knock it down. Well, you've got to make sure the power's off. You've got to make sure the gas is off. That's really dangerous. You also have to make sure these houses, a lot of which were built a long time ago, don't have toxic substances in them. So you've got to do asbestos abatement.
What's it, about 10,000
it's about
to 20,000
per house.
How many vacant homes are
We've got about 70,000, I think.
So do the math on that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I mean, they are moving fast with that, but they can't, you know, again, you can't just go and knock them down. It takes time. But again, these are problems that have been building for a very long time. We should have started a lot earlier, and we'd be further along.
I do want to point out that there are volunteer patrols around a lot of these schools in the area. You know, Brothers on Patrol around Cody, Man Network, they're around Denby and Osborne, Made Men, they're around Osborne. These are people that are volunteering the 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon to make sure that these kids are safe. But the fact that we have to rely on that in coordination with DPS patrols and with Detroit police.
Well, I mean, everybody should be volunteering to try to help in their community, but that's a supplement to city services in most places, right? That's a wraparound for the infrastructure that already exists. The problem we have in Detroit is that infrastructure is gone. So you have citizens now performing the role of city government, which makes no sense. I mean, we pay the highest taxes in the whole state in the city of Detroit, and we got to patrol our own streets. That makes no sense at all.
You want to wrap it up for me, Nolan?
Well, I mean, we do have to start thinking about the 650,000 Detroiters who don't live downtown or near downtown.
In Midtown, yeah.
And who are basically becoming invisible because nobody's paying attention to their needs and the living conditions. You can talk about, well, the lights are out in Detroit, and you can have sort of a theoretical conversation about laying off police officers and patrols. But unless you get out there and talk to the folks and actually drive through these neighborhoods, it's hard to comprehend the devastation that people are living with.
And I think it also goes to the larger discussion that I'm sure we're going to be having about shrinking the city and changing some of the boundaries and a lot of the vacant land that we have. All right. Well, if you'd like to know more information on volunteer patrols, how you might help out more about this story, we're going to have a link up on our website at MiWeek.org. Well, you know, things are starting to take shape for a new financial advisory board in the city of Detroit. On Thursday, Governor Snyder and Mayor Dave Bing announced their appointees to the board. They jointly picked former state treasurer Robert Bowman. Snyder tapped Daryl Burks from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Treasurer Andy Dillon picked Ken Whipple from Korn Ferry International, who's also a trustee here at Detroit Public Television. So, taking a look at this
we won't take shots at him.
Right. Taking a look at this first group of gentlemen, what do you think?
Well, those are pretty good first-round draft picks as far as I'm concerned. Bowman had a good record as treasurer, and then has had a really successful post-government career. He does answer the council's demand for somebody with municipal and government experience. He understands the political process. Whipple is as good as it comes in terms of a man of integrity and skills in terms of executive his executive credentials. And Burke's has been working with the city during this whole turnaround process.
And the schools. He's been helping Roy Roberts. I think this was a no-brainer. We would get good picks from these three choices. The wild card is city council.
It's the council's
right?
choice.
Who are they going to be able to? And it's not that there aren't people on council who will have good ideas. It's, can you get enough votes to get those people on? And there's going to be a lot of bargaining and horse trading that's got to go on to keep that majority together. And I keep worrying that without that five that signed the consent agreement, if one of them peels off, this whole thing sort of
got a little bit of gridlock again.
Yeah. Well, then it goes back into the state's lap, and you've got the friction again. I was a little discouraged at the council meeting earlier this week where they established the positions, and they were arguing over how much to pay a project manager, and outraged that he might make $250, $260 a year. Well, this is going to be a huge job, and they need someone highly capable to do it. You're not going to get that person for $68,000.
When you think about the numbers, this is the numbers. You're talking about a city with $7 billion in unfunded liabilities, $6 billion of bonded debt. It's a $3 billion a year operation. You're not going to get somebody for $200,000 to turn that around. I mean, that's a $500,000 a year job.
You need to pay for it. All right, let's talk a little bit about leadership. How's the mayor doing? We've heard that he is coming back to work in the next week or so, but what are you hearing? Are there some concerns?
I think there are some concerns. I think the mayor is I mean, let's just look at it objectively. This is a 69-year-old man who's had 2 life-threatening medical events in the last 30 days. And God knows we all wish him well and a speedy recovery, but is it really realistic that this is somebody who's going to get up out of the bed and go to work every morning at this point? I just think there's an effort to sort of oversell the idea of him being healthier than he is.
It's got a Weekend at Bernie's feel to it. They seemed just hell-bent on convincing us that he's hale and hearty and he's still alive and he's still participating. I mean, it's okay if he's sick, and they should level up with the citizens of Detroit that the mayor's gone through a lot. It's going to take him a while to come
he'll
back.
be better, but
and here's the process for managing the city while he's gone.
And we do wish him well, and we will continue to see how this all plays out. All right.